it's the Cryptic Cinema here, and today I'm going to be doing a top 10 Halloween movies. So this is like going to be movies that are sort of appropriate to watch around autumn or fall season and the Halloween period. For the record, this isn't going to be movies that relate to the horror genre per se. It's more going to be family-friendly movies, movies that can be watched by all audiences, and yeah, just stuff like that really. So of course Halloween is a very appropriate Halloween movie, of course, much as Trick or Treat and other such movies. However, I'm not including them in this list because, well, I'm just going to limit the list to family movies. Yeah, so this is the Cryptic Cinema's top 10 Halloween movies. These movies aren't going to be in any particular order. They're just going to be movies that I personally would recommend. Most of them are very nostalgic to me. I watched most of them growing up at a very young age. Two of them I actually don't own on DVD, and they're the ones that I'm going to... Well, it's going to be obvious because I won't show the DVD, but the first one is The Haunted Mansion. This one isn't really recommended. It's sort of a good Halloween movie. It's a good movie to watch during Halloween. I kind of liked it growing up. It wasn't one of my favourites. Eddie Murphy is still great in this movie. My personal favourite part of this movie is the talking heads, which I found quite hilarious as a kid. But yeah, this is just pretty much a generic Disney live-action film. It has its moments. I believe it's based on a tourist attraction at Disney World. However, I've never actually been to the main Disney World. I've just heard that this sort of mansion thing was popular at the time of this release. But yeah, a great little atmospheric film, and of course it is a very family-friendly movie, so this is my first recommendation. Any Eddie Murphy fans would be more than happy with this. And it's also by the same guys who made Pirates of the Caribbean, so that's that. The second movie I'm going to talk about is called The Witches. This was a movie from 1990. It's a very, very fun movie to watch, basically, as the title suggests, about witches. I actually watched this for the first time this summer, and I believe I owned it on VHS actually, but never actually got around to watching it. But it's just a really, really fun movie. It does have one very, very creepy scene, the transformation scene, where the woman who is supposedly a witch actually turns into a witch, and all of her followers turn into a witch also. It's a very, very creepy aspect of the film, and whilst watching this summer, I found it hard to believe that this movie is actually aimed at kids, but it does actually have a very child-friendly theme, and it's just a really, again, atmospheric movie in most senses. It's a really creepy movie as well, especially towards the beginning, where the grandma figure's explaining what happened to a girl who got killed and kidnapped by a witch. But yeah, basically it's about this boy who moves to England with his grandma, and yeah, it's basically living in threat of witches. He suspects everyone of witchcraft. There's actually a really cool scene or sequence where he and this other kid get turned into mice, and they're good animatronics that were used to convey the mice effect. But very cute sort of segment, and overall a great film. So I'd recommend that one. The next one is going to be obvious. It's Ghostbusters. I would say the second film, however, I don't really like the second film as much. You know, it's not as good as Ghostbusters, the original. When I first watched this movie, I actually didn't like it. I didn't appreciate it, and I thought it was kind of overrated. However, I didn't grow up with this movie, and upon watching it again, I was able to really appreciate the film for what it actually is. You know, this movie, despite saying started most things within pop culture, I would go as far as saying this movie is pop culture. On most sort of t-shirts and merchandise, it's usually a Ghostbusters sort of logo, and I would say that this movie is the most popular movie of the 80s. Really great cast, especially Bill Murray. He's awesome in this film. Harold Ramis is also probably my favourite Ghostbuster. But yeah, directed by Ivan Reitman, who of course directed Evolution. I don't really think I need to say anything about Ghostbusters to say it's a great movie, and everybody's probably already seen that anyway, so... Yeah, the next one is Arachnophobia. This movie is, again, it took a while for me to get around to watching this one. Definitely one of the most popular movies about spiders. Basically this house, I believe it's the allotment near the house that's infested with spiders, and they called in an exterminator. And it is really great. It's got a lot of great effects in this from my memory, but it's actually been a while since I've seen this one, but just knowing from my sort of memory of it, it's a really awesome movie to watch around the Halloween season. Of course, it's one of the only good sort of spider movies that's family friendly. Certainly one of the most popular. But Arachnophobia it's definitely recommended. I would definitely recommend it. It's very similar to Twister in terms of cinematography, in my opinion. And obviously they're both sort of movies, natural disaster movies, if you can call spiders a natural disaster. So they're very, very similar. But yeah, Arachnophobia, definitely recommend that one. The next one is probably my favourite spooky movie to watch growing up, and that's Hocus Pocus. Three witches basically were trialled during the Salem witch trials, I believe. They survive and re-enter the modern world, and it is amazing. You've really got to watch this movie if you somehow have missed out on this one. Great actresses that play the three witches. Of course, Sarah Jessica Parker as well. But this movie just defines the 90s for me. I mean, it's probably not the most definitive 90s movie that exists. Again, another Disney movie. I just think Disney really do a great job at making supernatural and superstition and combining that with a really great atmosphere. Yeah, Hocus Pocus, definitely one that I would recommend. It's full of all kinds of silly novelties, but it is really fun to watch. This actually has a really disturbing sequence that I can remember vaguely growing up with a sort of zombie character. I haven't seen this movie for a while, but this one has always been with me. It's very nostalgic to me. And yeah, I would definitely recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it. So that's Hocus Pocus, a very fun movie, comedy even, that centres around three witches. It's also got a very good soundtrack. Well, I use good very vaguely, but yeah, it's one that I'd definitely recommend. The one that I've recently just got around to watching, and that is Beetlejuice, starring Michael Keaton, of course, by Tim Burton. I think a lot of Michael Keaton's work actually does fit in with the Halloween season. This is definitely one of his better films. I didn't think it was anything brilliant. I mean, when I think of Tim Burton, I instantly think Batman 1989, which is one of my favourite films of all time, never mind Tim Burton movies. But Beetlejuice just has a very, very weird concept, and it definitely fits in with the Halloween season due to its dark, atmospheric sort of environment that the film has. Despite the title being a misspelling of the star Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice the character actually doesn't really feature that much in the film, played by Michael Keaton, which is one of the main problems I have with this film. Is that you don't get to see enough of Michael Keaton, and it's a shame because Michael Keaton's performance is amazing. But basically it's about this husband and wife who have a tragic accident, and they go about their everyday life, and then they realise that they're actually dead, and a new family comes into their home. They've got to witness their house being inhabited by another family, and they've got to try and spook them off, and they try to avoid seeking the help of Beetlejuice to help them, but he just gets involved anyway. It's got a really rubbish ending in my opinion. I thought the ending was really crap and random, where the girl just randomly starts levitating and dancing in midair. But yeah, in terms of Halloween, I had to include it on the list. I definitely think it's one that is very popular within, again, pop culture. And yeah, Beetlejuice. The next one I had to include, it's often categorised as a Christmas movie and a Halloween movie. It's got very subjective elements to both seasons, and you know it's acceptable to class this film or to categorise this film as a Christmas movie and or Halloween movie. Basically, brilliant animation. I don't think you can get better animation. Despite Tim Burton being on the title, he actually didn't direct this, like a lot of people think. It was actually directed by Henry Selick. This particular DVD also has a very great short by Tim Burton called Vincent. If you haven't seen that, I'd definitely recommend it. But yeah, I just think this one fits into the Halloween period a lot, and of course it's a definitive family movie, especially the segments in Halloween Town, you know, with the theme This Is Halloween, which has actually got a really good metal version, which I'll probably put the link in the description to that for any fans of metal that want to see the variation on that song, which I definitely do recommend because it's a good song in general. But yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas, really awesome movie. Of course, if you haven't seen it, which I can't believe if anybody hasn't seen Nightmare Before Christmas, but I had to include it on the list. It's just a really fun movie, actually. I really like and enjoy seeing the versatility in all of the different characters' appearances. Of course, there's Oogie Boogie, and it's just really interesting and intriguing watching, especially as the song This Is Halloween is running. It's really interesting to see, you know, Tim Burton's limits with character creation and character appearances. Definitely a fun one to watch. The next one I'm going to talk about is Monster Squad. This one is a really, really good movie. You know, if you haven't seen Monster Squad, it is more popular with American audiences. However, the movie is just one of those great 80s movies as well. Like I pointed out earlier, Ghostbusters pretty much defined the 80s. I'd also say Monster Squad defines the 80s also. This one I really, really enjoy watching, mainly because I'm such a fan of the old Universal Monster classics. It's really fun to see them all together in one movie, one big movie. Because you've got the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, of course, the Mummy, Frankenstein, who's conveyed as a protagonist in the film, and the Wolfman. And I think they're the five main Universal monsters, but I would have preferred to see the Invisible Man, my favourite, and there's one more, Phantom of the Opera, I believe, and Bride of Frankenstein. I was kind of disappointed that they weren't in the film, as the film tends to showcase all of the Universal monsters, but aside from that, it's a really, really great film, and the acting, despite its cast being mainly young 12-year-old actors, I believe, it's just great. It's really well acted, really well choreographed, and it's got a really quirky, funny script, and the dialogue is really funny also. And I just really enjoyed seeing this movie, knowing what to expect. Like, I knew that there was going to be appearances from all the Universal monsters, which I, of course, am a big fan of. One of the best movies to watch on Halloween night. Yeah, getting off topic now. Yeah, Monster Squad, really awesome movie. Great comedy, a lot of great references in it, and yeah, I'd recommend that one. Next, I have The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. This is a really short Disney classic, actually. This is 65 minutes, which is approximately, of course, probably half an hour of Ichabod, which is based on Sleepy Hollow, as it's called. This is probably one of Disney's best animated classics, in my opinion. You know, it's based on two classic stories, of course, The Wind in the Willows and Sleepy Hollow. But yeah, especially Sleepy Hollow is what I'm going to talk about. I've always been a fan of Sleepy Hollow, the story in general. Growing up, I've always had a weird fascination with the Headless Horseman character. This one just does it in a really interesting and great way. You know, it's animated fantastically. And again, it's just a really good animated atmospheric movie to watch around Halloween. A lot of quirky sort of character designs. Of course, Ichabod is really, really exaggerated in this. It's got like a really small head and quite tall stature, of course. But yeah, I really don't know what else to say about this one. It's just an animated version of Sleepy Hollow and Wind in the Willows, but they both contrast really well. It doesn't run for too long, it's 65 minutes, so very, very easy viewing. Yeah, it's one of my favourites, very nostalgic to me anyway. And finally, we have The Burbs. The Burbs is just such a great horror comedy. Some like to class it as a horror film. I don't really think it's much into that category, but The Burbs is just a really fun movie. Tom Hanks. I actually took me a while to get around to watching this. For some reason, the front cover just didn't really intrigue me that much. It's about Tom Hanks, who basically is taking some time off work, and he has new neighbours, which he begins to suspect are up to no good. His son thinks they're grave robbers, and it is just such an amazing movie. It's fun, quirky, entertaining, awesome movie. I really don't know what else to say about it. Not one of Tom Hanks' most famous roles, of course, because it was pretty much the start of his career. In fact, it was 1989, so that's really... I mean, Forrest Gump was sort of around... Forrest Gump was 1994, so this... It wouldn't surprise me if this actually sort of boosted Tom Hanks' career up, because this is a great movie. Sort of off the spooky side of things, it is a really good comedy. It has the perfect contrast of horror and comedy. And really, it's just fun to watch Tom Hanks in this sort of over-obsessed neighbour role. But yeah, that is my top 10 Halloween movies. Please rate and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos.